Their first 11 is as good as Manchester City's and Liverpool's. They can go head-to-head with both of those clubs.
Arsenal are pushing for Eze. Palace are tough negotiators.
8 goals and 4 assists in 33 games in the Prem.
You know, he does strop a bit when he isn't picked.
I am forever criticising Gabriel Martinelli.
My prediction is Arsenal will win the league. Yeah.
You heard it here first. Hello and welcome to Transfers Exposed. I'm Will Pugh from Sunsport. That right next to me is Jordan Davies, football reporter extraordinaire. And Jordan, it is wonderful to have you with us, replacing Jack Rosso, who just couldn't be bothered today.
Couldn't be bothered, but I'm here instead. I'm here instead.
Thank God.
This is your exclusive pass to the hottest transfer stories straight from the Sunsport desk.
Exactly that, mate. We're here, of course, every Tuesday and Thursday throughout the transfer window until it slams shut, as it always does, on September the 1st, looking at all those biggest and best deals.
And in this video, we're going to break the mould a little bit and look at players that could be leaving rather than coming in, and that club is Arsenal.
Absolutely, mate. Jordan is across all things Gooners for the Sun, reporting with aplomb for a couple of years now.
Aplomb.
Mate. It's a good word.
Wow, that is a great word. I might use it more often. Yeah.
Will Pugh, bingo, aplomb, that's on there. First of all, we're off the back on Transfers Exposed of a decent result. Obviously, Son Heung-min has just signed for LAFC for 20 million quid, which we exclusively revealed on July the 24th. So that was a pat on the back for all of us, particularly Dean Scoggins, whose story that was, who's out in Turkey at the moment, sunning himself. But like I say, Jordan, you're across all things Arsenal. You have been for some time. I'm not going to use aplomb again, mate. That once was.
Oh no, keep using it. It's fine.
Once was quite enough, but obviously Manchester United are in a similar situation where they must get rid of players to sell. Chelsea were kind of in that phase of the window where they need to get some players off the books. Lots of clubs have done some business early, some still to be done. But with the PSR era that we live in these days, outgoings are just as important to these big clubs as the incomings. Now, you want to talk to us about Arsenal because they have obviously done the Gyokeres deal, which excites lots of fans. So I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what you made of his start. You've met him already, had a sit down with him. We'll talk about Eze as well and Gabriel Martinelli. But just talk to me first of all about where Arsenal are at, particularly in terms of outgoings.
Yeah, it's interesting because I think the plan always for this summer with Andrea Berta coming in as sporting director was to get deals over the line early. I don't think any of us expected them to get 6 deals done. Well, 4 done before the pre-season tour on July 19th and then 2 more after that with Gyokeres and Mosquera coming in. So it's been very un-Arsenal-like to get all their deals done before August and before the start of the season.
Remind us of the 6.
Well, on the spot. Kepa, Zubimendi, Noni Madueke, Christian Nørgaard, Viktor Gyökeres, and Christian Mosquera.
Gosh, test passed. Well, that is aplomb right there. That is aplomb.
So now it's just about... I mean, Arteta has always wanted a bigger squad ever since he's been at Arsenal, and he's been working for years and years to try and build depth, and he finally feels like he now has it. But there are now some areas where he thinks we could let go of them, and also just to earn back some money. They spent over 200 million this summer, which they could afford to do, but it would be nice to kind of bring that back a bit in terms of net profit.
Well, you mentioned to me before about how he's sort of quite like obsessed with having 2 players in each position.
Oh yeah, for years. Yeah, he told us in a press conference last season about how he wants 2 players for every position and be able to constantly rotate. It's basically, again, trying to be like Pep at City and want to have the quality, and it's his mentor, obviously, and he wants to kind of basically create the City model, but in an Arsenal way in terms of having a lot of players to come in and out. He's been criticised a lot this season, last season, the last few seasons of not rotating enough. But then the counter to that is, well, if you look at the bench, and you had the likes of Eddie Nketiah and Reece Nelson and Fabio Vieira, they weren't really game changers. They could come in and do a job, but they weren't really going to change it if you're losing 1-0 and you've got 10 minutes to go and you need to win.
Whereas at City, Liverpool as well, somewhat less so, but City in particular, over their extended period of success the past few years, are almost always bringing off a player of equal quality off the bench, aren't they? And to be honest, Arsenal have proved, haven't they, over the past 2 to 3 seasons, that their first 11 is as good as Manchester City's and Liverpool's. They can go head-to-head with both of those clubs. They've performed well. They've obviously wiped other teams to one side further down the league. But it always felt to me, and I would say it to anyone who listened, I'm sure you watch a lot more of Arsenal in the flesh than I do, that just felt like the reason they haven't won a league title in the past couple of years. Not because that Arteta wasn't an excellent coach or that their first 11 wasn't as good as any other team in Europe, certainly in the Premier League. But it's just exactly that, where you get to 70 minutes in a game, Manchester City are bringing on like Bernardo Silva or Jeremy Doku or
Phil
Marmoush
Foden
last season.
yeah.
Phil Foden, exactly. Yeah, and those players you mentioned, that has always just felt the difference, the depth rather than the first 11.
Well, and it's funny you say 70 minutes because so many times this season we've been in a press box watching Arsenal and it hits 70, 75 and we're thinking he hasn't made a change yet. Like, he hasn't. He needs to do it. And you see him standing there and looking back and just thinking, what have I got here? What have I got? I'd rather stick with the players I've got and they're going to create something. Very tired Odegaard or a Declan Rice or a Kai Havertz who's kind of on one leg or like it felt like he was really struggling and didn't want to call out those players in press conferences and said, he's happy with the squad, but deep down we know that he really wanted a big squad, which hopefully he has now. I mean, the midfield is now packed out. He's got two proper strikers for the first time in years. I know we had Gabriel Jesus, but he kind of
didn't really happen for him,
didn't really happen. Yeah. Kai Havertz, was he a striker? Was he not? Yeah. Now we know he's a striker, and he's now with Gyokeres, and we've now got someone like Noni Madueke who can play on both wings to give Saka a bit of a rest, which is really important. You've got now Martinelli and Trossard on the left, and you've now got two left backs. You've got two right backs. You've got three centre backs, which is an area they're probably still. Oh, sorry, four centre backs. Sorry, I forgot Mosquera. But as we'll talk about, there could be some outgoings in that area, so they may need to sign.
Well, tell us now, Jordan, if Arsenal are going to do any more business in this window, they will have to sell some players. Just run through which ones they'd be happy to sell, which ones they're looking to sell, and any context for any of them.
I think the one that's been in the news recently is Fabio Vieira, signed back in 2023 from Porto for about 25 million. It hasn't really worked for him. I think Arteta thought that he would bulk up and become this like big kind of muscly playmaker who could hack it in the Premier League. That hasn't happened. He was back at Porto last season on loan. Andrea Villas-Boas, president of Porto, who people remember from Spurs and Chelsea, has been in touch with Arsenal this summer about whether they can maybe buy him. Arsenal want to recoup what they've paid for him already, and Porto just can't afford that. And there's now talks with Stuttgart who might buy him, so Arsenal might get about 20-25 million around that, including add-ons for Fabio Vieira. And then you've got people like Jakub Kiwior, who has been linked with moves to Italy. His stock has never been higher. Now, Arsenal fans may say, well, let's keep him. He's proved at the Bernabeu. He played really well in both legs against Real Madrid. He's proved it, but he can be a good player, but he's never going to start. And next season, he's not going to play as much. I mean, well, as long as Saliba and Gabriel don't get injured. So right now, his value, I'm kind of plucking it in the air here, but 25 to 30 million maybe for Jakub Kiwior. That would be a really good sell. And you've already got Mosquera there, who's a young player who's going to learn. He doesn't really expect to start. So then you can bring in someone else. And then you've got people like Zinchenko, who's the third choice left back now, which sounds mad to say, considering for the start of last season, Miles Lewis-Skelly was nowhere near it. And now he's starting for England and starting for Arsenal.
Particularly what I find interesting about Zinchenko is that, particularly in this day and age where there's so much is made of the inverted fullback, and while he was at Manchester City, he kind of like led that revolution almost, didn't he? By stepping into midfield from fullback time and time again. Chelsea do it all of the time now with Marc Cucurella. They're probably like the number one system that employ that, and you'd think there'd be a home for Zinchenko somewhere in the Premier League. What about Trossard?
Well, Trossard is an interesting one. His contract is running out, and what we understand is that he is happy to stay, but he is also, we saw last season him looking quite stroppy on the bench, and with Arteta joked last season that he does strop a bit when he isn't picked, and he's almost 30 now, and if there was an offer coming in. Oh, sorry, did I say
almost 30 now? Grow up is what it sounded like.
No, almost 30 now is in. He's getting on a bit in kind of footballer terms, and I think if there was to be an offer, I know Saudi have been interested in him. I know there's been links to Turkey as well. Fenerbahce with Jose Mourinho has been links, and if there are other Arsenal incomings in that area, Trossard may think, well, I'm not really going to start if there's Martinelli. Madueke can play on that side, and if someone else is there, I might go. So that would be another one that I think Arsenal would. I don't think Arteta would like to sell him because I think he really rates him as a good squad player.
Yeah.
But if it comes down to it, they may just have to cash in now rather than let him go for free.
Right, well, before we move on to Eberechi Eze from Crystal Palace, I want to hear what you know about that. Give us the latest on that topic. I sensed that the someone you were talking about potentially replacing him might have been Eberechi Eze. Gabriel Martinelli, though, Jordan, I am forever criticising Gabriel Martinelli. Particularly, I think it's because all I have stuck in my head, I say you watch a lot more Arsenal in the flesh than I do. All I have stuck in my head when I think of Gabriel Martinelli is him bearing down on goal and smashing it at the goalkeeper time and time again, or dragging it wide of the near post.
Very consistent then.
He is very consistent, mate, yeah. But I just find it must be, I always think it must be so frustrating. And lots of the Arsenal fans that I speak to and people who cover Arsenal, including yourself, are aware now that perhaps among fans there's been a bit of a shift in actually that position potentially is a problem. Maybe he was going under the radar a little bit in seasons gone by, but perhaps there's a bit more frustration amongst some Arsenal fans than there used to be. But Arteta, you're quite a big fan?
He's a really big fan. I mean, he wouldn't still be at the club if Arteta wasn't a fan. I mean, the work rate he does up and down that left flank. I mean, I know it's kind of boring to say, but he does cover whoever's playing at left back, whether it's Luis Skelly or Calafiori, really, really well.
Yeah.
He's done it a few times at Anfield and the Etihad when they were down to 10 men last season. He was one of the standout players purely for that work rate. And I think Arteta thinks it's quite hard to replace. I mean, you can find a player that can score you the goals and can go on the outside of defenders and put in crosses, but in terms of having that and also the work rate, and I get it. What's frustrating for Arsenal fans is that Martinelli, on occasion, can do it. He can be consistent. He can take on his man. He can cut inside and give that ball. He can not shoot it at the keeper, but curl it into the bottom corner. He can do that, but he's just not consistent enough. And I think this will be a really big season because 2 seasons ago he hit really good numbers. He hit double figures in goals alongside Odegaard and Saka, and they were one of the big 3 of why they were successful. Last season he was nowhere near it. And I think he struggled with the pressure of having to carry the team with Saka out and Havertz out and Jesus out, and so this is a really big season. I think if it doesn't happen for him this season, there may be conversations. But as far as I'm aware, Arteta would not want to sell Martinelli at all. 8 goals and 4 assists in 33 games in the Prem last season. 2 goals, 2 assists in 13 Champions League games. 5 games in the EFL Cup and the FA Cup, no goals or assists. I think I remember being at the game at Stamford Bridge early in his career, the game where he sort of ran from the halfway line. And N'Golo Kante slipping.
That's it. And what an absolutely incredible goal, showed real composure, absolutely wonderful scenes in the away end, total limbs. And I was really excited. I remember being really excited, but this is a player who's going to go on and light up the Premier League. And it just feels like he's never quite done that. And I know what you mean about the work rate side. Do you feel he's also a victim of the fact that he plays opposite Bukayo Saka, who's one of the best players in Europe? I don't think you can get away from that. That constantly Arsenal do prefer to play down the right, and that's because you've got the Ben White, Odegaard, Saka kind of triangle factor, which Dean would love me saying about triangles. He really would,
right?
Wouldn't he? Yeah.
And
tactics exposed back very soon, by the way.
And down the left, it's just not quite the same. I think that's because Luis Skelly kind of it inverts and cuts in, so he hasn't really got that help and support. That's quite new though, isn't it? That's quite a recent thing. It is quite recent, but you kind of think back, when's the last time he had a left back that properly bombed down? I know Calafiori can do it, but he hasn't been fit, and Zinchenko again isn't that sort of player. He's never really had that Ben White equivalent on the left to help and support him, so he kind of has to do it on his own and create something out of nothing, which isn't necessarily his skill set. If he's got a left back there who could slip balls in behind, then he can run in. I think that's where he's strongest. It doesn't help that he's got one of the best players. Fair enough then, mate. Right, let's talk a couple of things. Eberechi Eze, what's the latest? Talks ongoing. I know that's a really boring thing to say, but and I think people expect us to have kind of a new news line every day. I know your bosses do. The bosses do. And sometimes it is just a case of the talks are ongoing. Arsenal are interested. They're happy to pay what Palace want. I know there's going to be add-ons, and that'll be another discussion. Again, like with Gyokeres, the add-ons are going to be all important. And if it's kind of rising up to 80, 90 million, then talks may break down. But I don't see that happening. The plan was always to get those 6 done. The 6th signing was already done, and then move on to other targets to see if they can get them. Eze is one of them. It would just be interesting to see where Arteta sees him playing, because I don't think he sees him primarily as a winger. Right. It's a bit of a Kai Havertz situation where he can play as an 8 and striker. Eze could play on the left, or he could play as a 10, which is a really interesting dynamic to think about, because where does Odegaard fit into that? Where does Ethan Nwaneri fit into that? It's really, and that midfield is already crowded as it is. So
bit of pressure on Odegaard after last season, though.
Really big pressure, and also being the captain as well, and that might save Odegaard a bit, just being the captain. You know, he's got to be in the team. But yeah, it's really interesting. Arsenal are pushing for Eze. Palace are tough negotiators. As we know.
We saw that with Gahey as well.
We saw that, but Arsenal do have a really good relationship with Palace, as we saw with Nketiah going there for 30 million, which again was a steal. No wonder they've got a good relationship with them. I really like dealing with them. So it's, I wouldn't say it's close, but it's talks ongoing.
Rodrigo, Real Madrid. Anything in that?
Again, this has been one that's been rumbling on, and Arsenal are interested, but it's just whether he actually wants to leave. There's kind of murmurings of whether his agent's kind of playing it a bit and
just to get a new deal
at Madrid, or just to kind of convince Alonso to kind of put him in the team. There's a bit of that, and I think if a stupid bid came in, I think Real Madrid would do it. I mean, Arsenal.
Are we talking like 40 million, something like that?
I think Arsenal would look at 40, 50, and then go on from there. If negotiations carried on, if Real Madrid turn around and say we want 70, 80 million. They may look elsewhere.
Fair enough. Just quickly, Jordan, you've met Viktor Gyökeres already. You were out on Arsenal's pre-season tour, of course. What have you made of his start to life at the Emirates after that was the initial sort of transfer saga that rumbled on a bit, finally got done? What have you made of his start?
Yeah, it's been, I think naturally everyone's expecting him to hit the ground running straight away, but I think you've just got to remember that he hasn't had a pre-season. He spoke to us in Hong Kong about, really struggling with the weight and having to kind of just sit at home and just kind of work out, eat, sleep, go to bed, and then wake up again and see if anything's changed. And that's what he did for about 2 weeks. And it really affected him. And then also flying out from London to Singapore after doing his medical, and then suddenly you're unveiled in Singapore in front of 30,000 mad fans, by the way, in Singapore, like mad Arsenal fans. And he looked a bit kind of rabbit in headlights, like, wow, this is a lot. And I think he knows this is his big move. This is his make or break. He's at the stage of his career where
27,
he has to make it work now. And kind of speaking to him, it's interesting when you see a player on the pitch and they have a very a big bravado, and kind of you think, oh, that's what they're going to be like off the pitch. And from what I saw, maybe he was jet lagged, tired, but he was very quiet and reserved and calm. And it's what we didn't expect, but actually maybe that's very reassuring. That away from the pitch, he's very calm. He doesn't get caught up in the headlines that we write, and kind of all the expectation. And he said, I haven't put any much expectation on myself. I know what I need to do. I need to score goals, and that's what I'm going to do. And I wasn't expecting him to do the celebration and suddenly scream
in the media room in the hotel
mid-interview. But I was expecting maybe him to be a bit more brash, and a bit swaggery and a bit arrogant, but he wasn't. He was actually very different. And again, that could be really good. It could be that he's very level-headed, and that Arsenal have got a player that isn't going to panic if he doesn't score goals in the first game of the season. But I can, if the team is right at Old Trafford and if he gets the delivery, he'll score goals. And he's shown that.
Do you think he's the answer then? Are Arsenal going to win the league now?
My prediction is Arsenal will win the league. Yeah, I think
you heard it here first.
I think that will be the difference. I mean, I am saying this with Isak maybe going to Liverpool, so I might have to change my answer. If that
caveat.
Happens. Caveat,
fair enough.